Hi, this is Colin from the History Pilgrim. I hope you've been enjoying my videos. I'm glad to see that there are more views. I have a rather chilling story for spooky season. I hope you enjoy. On the second Christmas in the history of the young nation, the United States experienced a shipwreck, which was a disaster as tragic as it is chilling. On December 24, 1778, the ship the brigantine General Arnold left Boston on a voyage to the West Indies. Unfortunately, an unexpected nor'easter hit, which trapped the vessel just off the coast of the harbor of Plymouth, Massachusetts. The ship was named for General Benedict Arnold, the same man who later turned traitor against a Continental Army. The ship was classified as a privateer ship. Privateer ships are unlike pirate ships, as they are being paid to exclusively attack and loot ships from a particular nation. As the General Arnold was a warship which fought in the American Revolutionary War, the crew was encouraged to attack and raid British merchant vessels. Under full sail, the privateers headed across Massachusetts Bay towards the open ocean. Unexpectedly, one of the biggest storms of the century was brewing. As the winds began to pick up and the snow fell harder, the crew soon found that they were stuck in a storm with no way of turning back. During its voyage, the captain decided to moor the ship off the coast of Plymouth Harbor. However, the Arnold's anchor couldn't hold and she began to drift into the long harbor, and they were trapped in a sandbar just off the coast of Plymouth Bay. Unable to escape the biting winds and furious waves, for 3 days and 3 nights a crew of over 100 men endured a frozen nightmare. Rain and sleet fell relentlessly from the sky, so much so that the interior of the damaged vessel began to take in water faster than it could be pumped out. This led to over 3 feet of freezing water flooding the cabin. The ship was stuck in snow and unable to move. The crew tried their best to survive, but the effort was futile. Desperate for some warmth, the men burned parts of the ship's fittings, but it was a losing battle against the winds and waves. Captain Mickey had his men dismount 16 of the deck cannons and store them below to add weight to the hull to give the vessel stability. Nothing seemed to stop the Arnold's dragging anchor. Huge waves began to break over the bow, which quickly turned to ice. The captain instructed men to pour rum into their boots to prevent frostbite and gangrene. However, most of the crew ended up drinking the rum to alleviate their pain. The storm made rescue efforts even worse. With the ship stuck in a sandbar and unable to move, they became trapped in a vessel encased in ice. As the storm finally ended, temperatures dropped. As the winds began to howl, it made the next 3 days a hellish torment. The townspeople watched in horror, knowing that there was absolutely nothing they could do to help the doomed ship. The ice in the bay was not fully solid, making it impossible for larger boats to be used, and smaller boats were shattered by the waves and ice chunks. Citizens of Plymouth made attempts to sail out and rescue them, but the boats all capsized and nearly put more lives at risk of freezing or sinking in the bay. It got so cold that many of the crew members slowly froze to death, with the only way of knowing who was still alive being the sailors who could still move their eyes. The people of Plymouth, the Monday after that Christmas, began to mount a rescue effort. Late in the afternoon, when there was a short break in the storm, the people of Plymouth began to send boats out from the shore. However, none of them could make it to the stranded vessel. They decided that the only way to get to the Arnold was to build a causeway out of ice and snow 1 mile long out into the sand flat. They gathered ropes, ladders, and wooden planks to distribute their weight across the ice. These men, fighting through biting winds, made their way carefully across the frozen expanse of the bay, dragging sleds behind them. The ice was an uneven and deadly mix of solid sheets, frozen waves, and unpredictable cracks. At points, men had to crawl to distribute their weight to avoid breaking through the ice. Every step felt like a losing battle, with the cold seeping into their bones from the powerful winds. Meanwhile, the shipwreck victims spent a second and third night on the quarterdeck in sub-zero temperatures. The living feared going to sleep, knowing that if they did, they would probably not wake up ever again. In an effort to block out the wind and waves, they piled up a wall of the dead bodies of their crew members around them. By December 28th, the causeway was complete and citizens of Plymouth had reached the ship. When help finally arrived, only 30 of the original 105 crew members were still alive. Because so many of the men on board huddled together for warmth, many of the men ended up freezing together into a single mass. This required many of the men to be buried attached together, as it was impossible to separate them. The dead were all brought to the Plymouth courthouse, where they could be identified by loved ones. An attempt was made to thaw the men by putting their bodies in a nearby brook. The crew were buried in Burial Hill Cemetery overlooking Plymouth Bay, which is one of America's oldest cemeteries. A memorial was constructed in the 1800s in Burial Hill Cemetery near Court Street in Plymouth. Captain of the Arnold, McGee skippered merchant ships out of Salem for the remainder of his life, including the famous Astrea, which opened American trade with China. Whenever in home port at Christmas, McGee called for a reunion of the 24 Arnold survivors, assisting any who were destitute with a gift from his own wages. At his request, when he died, he was buried with the Arnold crew at Burial Hill in Plymouth, Massachusetts. The wreck of the Arnold ended up inspiring ghostly tales. One of the most compelling of these is that of ghostly shouts. It is said that on cold winter nights, cries for help can be heard carried out from Plymouth Bay. Sailors and fishermen alike have long claimed that the ghostly shouts grow louder during storms, a chilling reminder of that December night. Another tale involves that of phantom lights, which are strange lights which appear in Plymouth Harbor where the General Arnold was trapped. The lights are said to resemble lanterns which move slowly and frantically, much like the lights of the rescuers who risked their lives crossing the frozen bay. There is also a tale told by boaters in Plymouth Harbor late at night of seeing the ghostly image of the doomed vessel itself. The apparition of the General Arnold is said to appear as an apparition shrouded in mist. The ship moves along the same path it took. The story of the General Arnold is a captivating chapter in the history of Plymouth and the broader narrative of American maritime endeavors. This incident not only highlights the challenges faced by sailors during the time period after the Revolutionary War, but also highlights the spirit of cooperation and resilience within the local community. As the ship navigated the rough waters of Plymouth Bay, it became a symbol of the unpredictable nature of maritime voyages. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'd be interested to hear your comments. Yours truly, The History Pilgrim.